I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And hey guys, back for another fun-filled episode here on the Red Moon Podcast.
Fun.
I gotta be honest with you, I've been a little bit under the weather this week.
Yeah, but you've been working on that swoop. I see it.
Yeah, it's better this week. It's not dropping.
That's six swoop.
It's like the
Swoop?
The what? The six swoop.
Six swoop.
What is? Oh, it's a six swoop.
Six swoop.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
a swoop. It's a whoop. Just look like you've been sick
Thank
and
you.
haven't, done anything with yourself.
That's what I'm. That's what's going
Bedhead
on.
is what they call that.
Really, what I've been doing is a lot of Ricola.
Really?
Ricola.
and
That's what I needed.
I like
And
NyQuil.
ZQuil.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You like what?
NyQuil.
NyQuil, man.
NyQuil.
NyQuil.
I like NyQuil.
I'm telling you,
You
man,
take
that stuff
NyQuil
works.
and you go to bed
Yeah.
and then you wake up. And
But
you're
see,
like,
there's two different. There's
NyQuil.
NyQuil and there's.
Throw it over here so I can show. I gotta show
Uh-oh.
people something.
All right, it's
Got
on
it?
you.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
This is this is what Brandon's been doing. This is in his bathroom.
That's my sleep aid.
Free
That's
sleep
not
aid.
sleep
Now look,
aid.
now
Look-
wait.
look at
Pay
that.
attention. Pay attention
Melatonin,
to the
ZQuil,
one.
and
The
off-brand
one.
ZQuil.
The one is sealed still.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, so that tells you right there. Like I was telling you, Sean. I was telling you, I'm getting low on
I
my
was gonna send
ZQuil.
that to Neil and just.
So then you got-
just
So
tell him,
I
like,
had to
what-
get some more.
Brandon's not
So you got
sleeping
the
good.
off-brand
Yeah.
ZQuil.
Yeah, the sleep aid. I ain't got no money for that.
So you're just
you know?
I've never
stockpiling
taken. I
sleep
just take
aids.
plain NyQuil, and that knocks me out just fine. I don't need ZQuil.
Benadryl.
Like, how powerful is ZQuil?
Benadryl.
Benadryl
I've
will
never
put
done
me out.
Benadryl. I've
Oh,
never
yeah.
done
No,
that.
I'm not done
Take two
Benadryl either.
Benadryl pills and you'll be
See,
gone.
okay, here's the thing. I thought originally melatonin.
Yeah, no.
Was-
that
Yeah,
helps
that's
you sleep.
natural.
But
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard that that's more for like that helps you relax.
That's just sleep
Yeah.
aid. It's
Right.
not gonna make
It's like
your,
once
it's not
you
gonna help
go
your
to bed,
sickness. Yeah.
then you're like
Excuse
you're
me.
out and you'll kind of be relaxed enough that like because sometimes I get like restless leg syndrome.
Oh yeah,
or,
Yeah.
melatonin will help.
Yeah.
That. Yeah.
I
And
get
so-
restless penis a lot.
Really?
Wow.
Does it just? What does it do?
It's just where it wants you to play with it.
Uh,
Like,
wow! It just
can't
kind
go
of
to
calls
sleep
to
It
until
you.
wants, it wants you to play, man.
That's right.
It wants you to play.
Oh.
It's just restless at night.
Keith, you got to work that soundboard a little more. You could have done something for that.
Well, I didn't know it was my job.
Yeah,
God,
I
it's
don't
your
think
job.
they don't have a.
Just the,
Gotta
I was
have
thinking
a-
like the
that wasn't
no,
very
I was
loud.
thinking the Mario.
I just tried. I just tried it. It wasn't very loud.
It's
Oh, you got it turned down.
God.
that's
Gosh,
my
see? Yeah,
Do
oh.
it now. No, that's when I'm done.
That's just failure. That's
Disappointment.
his failure for
It's a disappointment.
having it.
Well, when I go to sleep, I'm telling you, I need like the Zelda Link to the Past. That
Oh. You don't have
it.
I don't have it.
Oh, like the
Ocarina.
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
that would be good.
The fairy fountains. Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, the fairy fountain.
Yes.
But yes, I do have sleep aids because sometimes it's like, you know what? But here's the thing. I've learned that I can't take those during the week. It's usually at the end of the week where I
Yeah.
will.
No, I'm the same way.
Because if I knock myself out in the middle of the night, or
I
you know,
can't get up in the
I
morning,
can't
yeah.
get up in the morning.
If I take
For
NyQuil's
or
the
I'm
same way.
groggy. I can
Yeah.
get up, but I'm groggy.
I'll
real
take
slow,
Dayquil, Dayquil when I go to bed, like,
Yeah.
instead of NyQuil, because the NyQuil, like I wake up, I'm still groggy and I can't get
Yep.
moving, so it's like I can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, but
What?
that's all I've been.
Dayquil is supposed to keep you from being drowsy.
Yeah, that's why I take it.
That's
Before
yeah.
you go to bed?
Yeah.
because it's non-drowsy. So I mean, I just go to sleep. It doesn't have an effect.
Oh,
I can't
thought
do
it would
NyQuil.
keep you up.
No, it don't keep you awake. It just doesn't have effect one way or the other.
Hmm.
I just take it to
Something
help
you've
with-
learned, John.
I just-
I guess.
I just
mean,
take it because it's for congestion. I just
thought
take it for
Dayquil
congestion.
and
didn't-
Dayquil combo
I
was
didn't
like
know that
uppers and
either.
downers.
No, no.
I thought so too.
You take
Yeah.
Dayquil. You're supposed to take Dayquil during the day just for congestion, and then NyQuil just has the sleep aid or whatever. So,
Gotcha.
but I
Well,
mean, I can't take NyQuil at night.
you know, you learn
during the
something
week
new
because then I
every
can't
week
wake
on
up.
this
Yeah.
show.
This is a good icebreaker.
It was a
Yeah.
great
It was a good one.
icebreaker. It's we're getting it's allergy season. Okay,
It is.
we're
yeah.
switching
I've got
from summer
the
to
crud in
fall.
my throat.
Yeah.
crud.
Crud.
That
Crud.
Ohio Valley crud.
That's true. Ohio Valley.
I'm telling you. So I will be popping these Ricola all show long.
He just likes to pop.
What kind are
pills.
they?
He's
You
a
know,
pill
the
popper.
honey.
Honey?
I just got the straight
Is it
honey.
like lemon honey or anything?
Yeah, it's hold on.
He doesn't even know.
Honey herb.
He's just been sticking
It
it in his
says
mouth,
honey
and he don't even know what it tastes like.
Naturally soothing relief that lasts from Switzerland. I love it.
Oh.
It's so I'm telling you, I've tried the Halls. Halls is okay, but
I like
the-
Halls.
They're okay, but the Ricola, man, I'm telling you,
Well,
they,
because the Ricola don't have the that menthol flavor or whatever.
Yeah.
That nasty whatever.
oh,
that is, yeah.
you all see. I think it hides it.
I don't know.
As I say, they don't have it.
Yeah,
Halls
exactly.
does.
Yes,
We have
exactly.
a comment that says there's audio sync issues.
Oh,
Looks like we're in a
no.
looks like we're in an old Godzilla movie.
Wait,
If
It
there's
could be
anybody else watching, if that's what you hear as well,
Oh,
It
you
could-
please
yeah.
give
Give us
us
a shout and
let
let
us
us know.
know.
It might be
It-
try backing out of the video and coming back in. I've had that problem before.
Yes,
Try backing out and then coming back and see if it fixes it.
correct. Good,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yes, technical
Power down,
difficulties,
power up.
But yes, exactly. It's the official IT solution for everything.
yeah.
But it is true if you're having any kind of those issues, that's usually the normal solution. It's not us, it's the browser.
It's not us, it's
Facebook,
you.
YouTube.
Right, it's your
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
So deal with it.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys, we got a
That's-
great show this week planned. We got our multimedia segment where we're talking about
Multimedia.
multimedia. That's right. We're going to be talking about the Dark. Well, you all are going to be talking about the Dark Crystal.
Dark.
Yeah.
because I've not
Crystal.
really seen
You
any
haven't
of
seen
it.
much these days.
I haven't. I've been sick. It's always an excuse.
I know he's terrible.
But you all have seen it. You all are avid fans.
We've also seen it.
Ooh, you've seen it.
We've seen a few things this week. I mean, we're gonna talk about the Dark Crystal for multimedia,
Right.
but we saw it Chapter 2, which is going to be the bulk of our. I mean, that's what I did the review on.
Yeah.
But we also went and saw Midsummer, and that was
Holy
Director's
crap!
cut.
So there's
That was
just so
scary.
much.
That
There's a
was
lot we got to
yes.
dive into. So
Yeah.
should we just go ahead and dive right in? We got to get started. Guys.
Dive.
Here's our review of It, Chapter 2.
highly anticipated and finally here. It Chapter 2 sees the return of Pennywise the Dancing Clown, reprised by Bill Skarsgård, as he once again terrorizes the town of Derry. Picking up 27 years after the first film, It Chapter 2 follows the members of the Loser Club, now adults, as they are called upon to return to Derry and finish the work they started 27 years ago as children. The film's story is familiar to anyone who's read the novel or seen the original miniseries, as the bulk of the film follows the losers one by one, each receiving a call from Mike, now played by Isaiah Mustafa. All of the losers have gone on to have successful, if not always happy lives, having forgotten the events that plagued their childhood. But as Mike calls each one, Bill, now played by James McAvoy, Bev, now played by Jessica Chastain, Richie, Bill Hader, Eddie, James Ransom, Ben, played by Jay Ryan, and Stan, played by Andy Bean, their memories come flooding back. Soon the losers gather in Derry to face their past, their fears, and finally rid Derry of the evil that has long lurked below. It Chapter 2 does a great job in casting its adult cast. I cannot praise enough how spot on the cast is, all of whom give terrific performances. Amongst the best, however, is hands down Bill Hader and James Ransom, who nail the mannerisms and dialogue of their childhood counterparts. All of the cast is given great emotional scenes to chew on, but Hader knocks it out of the park, delivering a performance that you can connect with and truly feel the fear and pain the character feels. Skarsgård as Pennywise is still scary as the first, with subtle acting building on his creepy demeanor until it's too late. The film is emotional as well as fear-inducing, yet somehow not quite as scary as the first. Director Andy Muschietti really plays around with imagery from the book in this film, going all in on the effects and visuals, a lot of which don't make for effective scares. They are, however, still unnerving and make the film fun to watch. Luckily, Muschietti doesn't forget how to use subtlety and a sense of unease to still deliver true horror. It's just not as common as Chapter 1. My only other gripe with the film comes from iconic scenes changed from the book and miniseries. Not a serious gripe, obviously, but a few changes I felt were only made to set itself apart from those previous iterations. And while this isn't necessarily bad, I felt the way in which they were changed made for scenes that weren't quite as effective as they would have been if left alone. Ultimately, however, we did receive a solid horror film that nicely wraps the story started by Chapter 1. It may not be quite as scary as the first, and truthfully feels as if it couldn't exist on its own either, but what sequel can without its predecessor? It's still scary, fun, and emotionally compelling, and that's all you can truly ask for in the end. It Chapter 2 still flows with 3 out of 4 stars. Well, that's what I give It Chapter 2.
You got that
I like that.
broadcast voice
Chapter
on
two.
there.
Yeah. No,
I
3
like
out of
that.
4 stars. I enjoyed. I liked the first one just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it was a good movie, and I felt it really wrapped things up well.
No, I would agree. I think we both gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars. I think, if I'm remembering
Which, see,
correctly.
that disappoints
And
me 'cause
that's-
while I've
yeah.
not seen this one, I remember giving the first one just 3 out of 4.
really?
Really?
So I almost
Yeah.
may end up giving this one, which I've another friend of mine at work, a producer who went and saw it. He gave it 2.5.
Oh, really?
So I don't
okay.
think he was too impressed by
Oh,
it
wow,
either.
wow.
Well, I mean,
but-
it was a good film. I mean,
was-
it
yeah.
wraps up the story well. It doesn't end exactly the way the book does, and there's
Nor the
probably
miniseries,
yeah,
yeah.
and there's probably a lot of different aspects to it that are different from the novel, but it still was a terrifying movie. It is still spot on, phenomenal acting from everybody. I guess I've said it before. Like, we called Jessica Chastain being in that role before they ever cast her, but everybody else, we were just talking about it next door. Everybody else fit those roles like perfectly.
I mean, they looked
Yeah.
like
And
they could have been
and they-
those kids
yes,
grown into
up.
adults.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
fantastic casting how they did that.
And they were. I mean, I said the acting was honestly. I thought the weakest performance came from James McAvoy, and it still wasn't a bad performance. It
No,
just-
I would agree.
Yeah, but I felt like his character was probably the weakest, and then Bill Hader I thought was.
Oh
just-
yeah,
Him and
As
James
Richie.
Ronson, who played Eddie, were amazing. But I think Bill Hader specifically, really blew my mind. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, because you typically see him in comedic roles, and he is, Richie is the comedic character,
right.
But I mean, the drama and stuff that he brought to it too was awesome.
Oh yeah. There's several scenes that are kind of the most jarring scenes are the ones where Pennywise actually gets to prey on a kid.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of them in the film, and it's just there's something about those scenes where he is the scariest part isn't even when his teeth get sharp and his face transforms into the monster.
part
It's
is
when
The
he's the
scariest
clown.
part is
Luring
him
them in.
enticing them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just so disturbing the way he does it, especially with the little girl at the
Oh,
beginning
yeah,
when
that
he's
was
just
just
people
perfect.
make fun of me because of the way I look, and the little girl
She has like a birthmark
got a
on her
birthmark on her
face,
face, so he knows what he needs to say to relate to
Right.
her
Yeah.
and to draw her in, and it's just like the whole time you're sitting there in your seat thinking,
Yeah.
no, just go back
Yeah,
to your
just
mom,
run away.
run away. And
Which
the,
is,
the,
it's-
the other creepy thing, though, let me finish real quick,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that he's right there underneath the parent. Like, it happens
Under the bleachers,
feet
yeah.
away from her mother.
Right.
And it's just, that's so... I think one of the terrifying things about it is because a lot of times, and I'm not... It has nothing to do with a killer clown or an alien or anything like that, but it's like there are child predators in the world that literally rip people or rip children from their parents feet away from them.
Yeah.
And it just, that's what terrified me the most about it, is that predatorial thing that he has where it's just like he knows what to show her, he knows what to say to get her to
Yeah.
step 2 steps
'cause-
closer, and then she's gone and her mom's just right there the whole time and never knew it was
'Cause
happening.
That's where like
And
all
that's
the
so scary.
the tension and the suspense in the scene. That's where it all comes from. Is like you see, like she's right on the fence of like she's like getting ready to turn back. Like this is kind of odd and unusual. I'm gonna go back to my parents, and he's like, oh no. It's like I understand, and like just the way it is, and it is creepy the way he does it. I mean, those are the moments that are definitely terrifying.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, they do have some of the bigger, more grandiose scenes where, like I said, stuff from the novels where, like, they really get to be effects laden, and and that stuff's not necessarily as scary, but it is kind of unnerving. Some of the visuals, and it's fun. But I think that's why I felt like this one wasn't quite as scary as the first, because the first has a lot of the scenes like it and the little girl in the bleachers.
Yeah.
Whereas this one has some of those scenes, but also because it's the final battle. And there's these him going full force with his abilities and stuff. There's these bigger, more grandiose like effects scenes that they're not really scary, but they're also kind of necessary. So it's like I didn't dislike them because I mean they're integral to the story, but it just makes it a little less scary than like those scenes like Sean was
Yeah.
talking about.
The ones that seem like they could be real
Yeah.
are the ones
that are the scariest.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and let's talk about some of the changes that were made in the film, because I've heard that they've taken some liberties, but it's funny enough, Stephen King has come out like he normally does in support of the film.
He's usually
signed off on the changes.
He's usually very supportive of any. Stephen King has always said, he said, when I sell the movie rights to my works, that's their work. He said, I wrote the novel, I have my novel. What they're making,
which I've always
he
appreciated.
said that's
Oh,
what they're making is their thing, so let them have it. So I mean, I do appreciate that. He has a substantial cameo in this. It's awesome.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh man, I'm kind of
It is.
disappointed you told me.
It's very awesome.
Oh,
I
that
mean, you
would've
know
been
right
awesome.
away.
Right,
I mean, it's very awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, some of the changes that I had problems with aren't big. Like I said in my review, they're not big things, but there's I think the main one, spoiler alert, by the way, is there are things that are kind of built into the characters. Like there's a big point they make in this movie, which isn't part of the books, about them finding totems that kind of represent their past and their fears, and they each have to find like kind of that one thing that like represents their coming into adulthood, basically, to combat it, which was really cool. I liked that. It was new, but I liked the way they did it because it was kind of a new twist on what's called the Ritual of Chud, which is from the book, but they changed it for the movie purposes because it doesn't quite work. I mean, what they did in the book wouldn't work really.
Well,
on
I was going to
screen.
say it involves an orgy, doesn't it?
No, the Ritual of Chud.
That's when they're kids.
The first part. That's
that was
in book
in the
one,
first
right?
part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they do the Ritual of Chud twice. They do it when they're kids in the book and when they're adults. They only do it when they're adults in the movie. But the thing is, it's different, and it has nothing to do with the orgy. It's just that's where maturing the giant turtle and all that comes in, and it's kind of strange. And I understand why they didn't
go that route.
in
Yeah,
the movie.
I mean that's a little bit obscure.
It's kind of hard to. All that stuff ties into the Dark Tower, so it's kind of hard to do that. So, but anyways, they even make Eddie's totem like his inhaler. And that's a big part of who he was as a kid, and it's a big part of the miniseries and the book, and the whole like this is battery acid. And like it's okay if they weren't going to have that scene in there, but instead they give him like this iron like poker type spear thing that Bev gives him, and she's like, this will kill monsters if you believe it can. And I'm like, then why not just let him have his inhaler?
Yeah.
It's like, why change that?
Well, he uses the inhaler in the first movie when he's a kid.
Yeah. But then
to
again, I
burn his
thought
face.
Even then I
didn't
thought
think
it was
he did.
No, he doesn't.
I thought he did when they're in the
doesn't.
kitchen with the refrigerator.
He
and
does.
comes
He
out of the
uses it, but not at the point in which he's supposed to, which
Yeah.
is he runs
He
up
does
to him and he
briefly
says,
use
"This is
it.
battery acid."
Yeah.
And they never they get rid of the line.
Yeah, and they
Or-
don't do it as they don't do it as an adult either.
No.
And they don't do it as an adult either, which is a big for his character arc. I mean, what else? What happens still equates to the same thing.
Yeah.
It all ends up the same.
Well, wait,
but it's just for me, it felt less powerful because that's something that is uniquely him, that is a part of his character. And now they just give him this random metal pole and is like, okay, go to war. And I'm like, see, it's less impactful that way.
Yeah,
And it's not, like I said, it's not at all a major gripe because it doesn't really affect the overall plot of the film. It's just one of those things where I was like, I felt like it would have been more personal if they had. I think the only reason they changed it is because they didn't want to be too much like the book and the miniseries. It's like, well, we got to change a few things to set us apart, which is fine. Like, I mean, even having the Ritual of Chud in there sets it apart from the miniseries because that's not in the miniseries. But it's like you could have left things that are iconic. I think you can leave alone because they are iconic.
Right. No. I completely understand, but I still think at the end of the day, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it when I finally.
You should see it.
Get over my cold.
You should see it.
Well,
Chapter 2.
I'll see it. Another thing that I noticed
Chapter
was
2.
the length of the actual movie itself.
It's 3 hours long.
Almost
Yeah.
3 hours long. When I saw it was 2 hours 49, I was like, "Dang, gone."
Yeah.
I mean, which granted, it's a summation of the film.
And they
or
put a
of-
lot in there.
I was
Like,
gonna
don't
say
get me
they
wrong.
cram a lot of
There's not a
content.
boring moment. I
Okay.
never felt like there was any kind of a lull or anything.
I
where
honestly
they
didn't
could have
even-
sped things up.
I didn't feel like it was
didn't
3
even
hours
notice.
long.
Yeah.
I got out of that movie. Like, by the time it ended, I was like, are you serious? It's already been, like, I
Yeah.
was wanting more. I was like, I wanted there to be a little bit more depth and detail, and it was already 3 hours long. So I'm like, wow, this is, and not that, like, it was lacking depth and detail to where it was bad. I just wanted a little bit more, and it was already 3 hours long. So I was like, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. No, absolutely. It seems like we're having some more audio issues, guys. I don't
are
know.
we?
I think even Neil is saying that he's
been confirmed.
It's been confirmed that we're having some audio slippage,
sync issues,
some sync issues. So what I'm gonna do a first here on the Red Moon Podcast, which we've never done. I'm gonna jump back a little bit. We're gonna dive into Midsummer here coming up. But before we do that, I'm gonna dive back into our opening and throw up our slate, and I'm going to get this audio figured out and try to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, so hang with us.
Hang with us. So enjoy the headlines and all of the music. Once again, our pre-show open. I'm going to go ahead and play that back for everybody.
I mean, here.
And don't worry.
Are you not entertained?
Exactly. We'll get right back to it. I promise, guys.
It's human nature after all.
Oh, yeah. Enjoying that music. Oh.
What happened?
I don't know, guys. We're
Are we-
back. We're hoping something worked.
Are we fixed yet?
I'm
Viewers?
we're leading it out to you guys, lending it out to you all. We're hoping we're fixed.
The lending tree?
Yeah. I'm hoping.
There's more
because-
people watching now too, so we
Wow.
better get it
So
right.
we hope we got it right.
Yeah,
Better get it right.
We're back. We had a little bit of a lip sync issue there. So
We had
sorry
some
about that.
Problems.
Sorry. Yeah, we are trying to figure out our technical difficulties, but we're hoping that maybe somebody can lend us a hand and let us know if our lip sync is back on. We're going to continue the show like normal.
Even if it's not, we don't care.
we're
we've,
going to figure it out at some point. I really don't know what it could be.
Time.
So it's just going to be one of those things where maybe
It's your all's internet connection.
you just download our podcast.
Yeah,
Maybe this
Spectrum.
is a good time to just throw
like,
out.
Just do better.
You could download
Do
our
better.
podcast every Friday on your favorite podcast catcher app. And in order to do that, you know what else you could do is email us these technical difficulties
Really?
at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
No
Huh.
crap.
I'm telling you, it's
That's
that
freaking
simple.
crazy.
Yeah.
So, guys, if you all could confirm in the comments whether our lip sync issue
I don't
is
know.
fixed
Somebody
or not.
says we're on. I know we're on.
We're on, but
Dad,
Am I
know
talking?
We're on.
but are we actually?
Is our
Am I-
voices matching our
Mouth
mouths?
matching my mouth movement.
That's not gonna help them.
It's Godzilla. It's Gojira. Gojira. It's Gojira.
Oh, that's
Oh.
insensitive to
Yeah.
Japanese.
Oh
people.
yeah, we don't want to do that. That's right.
Uh.
That beautiful moon mug. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna continue with the show regardless.
Yeah.
Having technical difficulties.
We're
Hopefully,
gonna keep on keeping on.
we got to keep on keeping on. Again, It Chapter 2. Go see it.
Mhm.
3 out of 4
stars.
3 out of 4.
Solid. Yeah.
Solid movie. But from here on out, guys, we are talking about our headlines this week.
Headline.
We got one major
Wait. You
we're gonna
promised
ta-
Midsummer.
I
I'm talking about
did.
Midsommar.
We won't be long, but we
That's
did go
good.
see Midsummer
Go.
director's cut,
Director's cut.
and it was.
At times, it was
intense.
scarier than it.
Yes.
And-
Well, because like you said, the parts of it that were scariest were the things that could happen.
Could be real.
And this
yeah.
whole movie is something that like you could easily see actually taking place, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
it was terrifying
Yeah.
in that regard.
And I mean, for those who, if you haven't seen the trailer, it's kind of a movie that's a little bit flown in under the radar. It's basically
Mhm.
about a group of college kids that follow an exchange student to his home
in Sweden.
land of Sweden, into the woods, into the middle of God's nowhere, to
To a commune.
To a commune.
If someone
and
invites you to go
cult.
to a commune,
Don't do it.
yeah.
Don't.
If someone
ever.
says, "Hey, come back home to my commune where we have a have a summer festival every year," you
Right.
say no.
No, I don't know.
Right.
I'm gonna drink the Kool-Aid.
No.
Why not?
I'm never going
This,
to.
their Kool-Aid had shrooms in it.
If I
if
if once upon a
was
time,
Shroom-aid.
yeah, it did.
it sounds like a good.
If once
mix.
upon a
Shroom-aid.
time in Hollywood and Midsummer taught me anything, it's that you do not go to communes.
Yep, don't do it. But that was what was so terrifying about the film was
Yeah.
the things that take place in
Ah,
this festival,
Community, yeah.
and the rituals that they do are sick and twisted, crazy things,
And they
that,
believe in it,
that
like,
people do. And,
They
and-
wholeheartedly believe, like they have faith in what they're doing
Yeah.
as like basically their religion. They wholeheartedly believe what they're doing is right and justified, and it's terrifying. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just
yeah.
yeah.
So
It's a
If
me-
you
it's a
thought
messed
the Old
up
Testament
movie.
was scary. The
It's a-
Canaanites and stuff. These people put them to shame.
Yeah, it's a messed up movie.
Yeah.
But is it where you all would say it's
Oh,
definitely worth checking out?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's well.
Yeah.
Here's the thing too. You all didn't see the original. You just saw the director's
We saw the
cut.
director's
True.
cut, which is supposed to be a little bit
Right.
longer. It was 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Yeah,
so
it
this
was
is another.
Gosh,
it was
it's
But this is
another
good though
long
because this is
movie.
going to play into one of our
Yeah.
headlines.
It
Yeah.
sure is.
So, but yeah, another long movie that
was a-
never felt like a long movie. Like it did.
I would sit down and watch Midsummer for another 3 hours again over
Yeah.
It Chapter 2. Like
Oh,
I would,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I would.
Well, first of all, Florence Pugh, if that's how you say her last name, Pugh or
P-
Pugh, I don't know. Either one sounds
P-
bad, but like she was in Fighting with My Family. She was in the one about with Chris Pine, William Wallace. What was the name of that movie?
Oh,
Something about the king. Or,
yeah, yeah.
Oh, gosh, we
the
looked
Netflix
this up.
movie.
Like,
I know,
yes.
we looked it up
just
last
looked
time.
This up the
We-
last time.
we
trying to
reviewed-
figure this
we
out.
reviewed it.
We reviewed it, yeah. But anyway, like she's kind of a newer face, I
But
would
she did a
say.
good job.
But she is like phenomenal. Like, I mean, she's done some smaller roles and stuff, but this one really gave her the chance to like shine, and she definitely steals the show. Not just because she's a beautiful young girl, but I mean, she is a awesome actress. And the I forgot the guy that plays her boyfriend, but to play the most disconnected jerk of a boyfriend ever,
Oh
this guy did a great job
Wait, is
too. I
it
can't-
stereotype though?
No.
It's not at
Outlaw
all?
King. It's,
No.
it's good.
Outlaw King.
Outlaw King,
That was
yes.
No, it's not. It just feels real. Like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's a terrible relationship, but it feels like a relationship you would see every day about like a girl. It's like she needs to get out of the relationship. It's not a healthy
Mm, yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
And it's like
And
it's
he leads
done
her
well.
to a cult.
Well, no, not intentionally.
Yeah.
He has nothing. To
He
do.
doesn't. He's
He
just
he's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets his. I'm not gonna say anything, but he gets his justice, I guess, in the end.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where
uh,
you're like, thank God, I'm glad to see him get his.
But even then,
yeah.
though, even though that everything's coming full circle on him, like it's still you just don't want that to happen to him either.
to anybody.
Like, I mean,
like,
this
well,
stuff that happens
the
is
stuff that
not
happens, it's like,
justified at
yeah.
all. So it's a scary freaking movie.
All
because
I know is I saw this from the same director. I saw the movie Heredity, and
what's it called, Keith?
Hereditary.
Whatever. Hereditary. I always screw it up. Hereditary. And I will say, even that movie is freaking
Messed up.
Yeah, messed up.
I want to see it now.
It's like
I want to see it.
from the toll it takes, even just in there's one part in the middle that already kind of makes you queasy.
How long
but
is
then
Hereditary?
It's not that long.
Okay.
It's, as far as that, well, actually, it may be about the 2-hour mark.
Okay.
And this is not his first foray into this kind of messed up, very.
Oh, I know.
But did he for Hereditary? Did he write and direct that? Like he did
good
this
question.
film?
I'm not sure.
Well, I will find
I'm
out.
not
Find
sure.
out for us.
But I
no,
will tell you, it's also a messed up movie.
Yeah.
And
It's like
it
psychological
left me,
kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it leaves you feeling
Yes.
unsettled.
It was written and directed by Ari Aster. So
Okay.
yeah, he
All right.
wrote and directed both.
So he's on this.
He's
kick
a messed
of
up.
like,
He's a messed up
and
guy.
Individual, yeah.
It also deals with the occult and like, and I'm just like, I don't know.
But that's the thing. That's even though you say like, yes, it's a messed up. It's kind of a morbid imagination. These things really do happen.
Yeah.
Right.
People don't realize that.
But I think that's
people
where
go missing over in other
Europe all the
countries,
time,
and
yeah.
especially
Yeah.
Europe. They go missing over there all of the time, and people just chalk it up to, oh, well, our kid just ran away or went there and decided to
I
stay
don't know,
or whatever.
I'm intrigued now because Hereditary has a higher Rotten Tomato score than Midsommar, and I thought Midsommar was a really good movie.
Yeah.
So,
I walked out of the theater of that one and I was freaked out. Like it left me unsettled.
That's how.
Yeah.
That's how
I mean,
we
even
were.
and it leaves you. And I mean, that was the whole point. I just felt like when I watched it, I was like, I didn't know what to think.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was just kind of caught off guard. But he does these types of films where I think he taps into that fear and that nature of
Yeah.
this could happen.
Well, I love that.
And I think
the
that's
type of
what
horror- that's the
makes
type
it
of
so
horror I
scary.
love.
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, we
That-
spent a lot of time.
Yeah, we can
on
move
it when
on,
We haven't
but, I
written a
mean-
review, but yeah, go see.
Well, what would you
Midsommar.
give an informal review? What would
I
you
would
give it?
3.5 out of 4 for me.
I agree.
3.5 out of
yes.
4. All right, so
Yeah.
3.5 out of 4
I-
stars for It Chapter 2.
No, that's 3.
I know it's only 3 for Midsummer, and It Chapter 2 gets 2. Just kidding. 3 out of 4 stars. So now we're gonna. I know I'm
3.5
screwed up.
I'm so confused.
What? No.
Mid
No, you
Midsummer.
said
I'm so
It
confused.
Chapter 2
It
is
Chapter 2 is
03.
3, yeah, but
right. I
Mids-
just said
But
that.
you said Midsummer was 2, and then you said no. I'm
no.
just kidding. 3.
I jokingly said.
Jeez.
I'm so
I screwed it
confused.
all up.
You
God
did.
help us.
Yeah.
I
God
screwed
help
it all
us.
up.
Gosh.
It's like
All right.
our lip sync issue. I want to make
That's
sure
what
people are really
that's what we're
paying
blaming
attention.
it on. It's all technical difficulties.
Well, I tried
now that doesn't
the
work.
sound button
Okay.
and nothing came through.
That's
All right,
'cause
so
I still have
let's
the
move
sound
on to
down.
the headlines, shall we?
Yes, we should. So our headlines do, like you said, Sean, focus on movie length.
Mm-hmm.
And the question here is through a Rotten Tomatoes article that they just determined out of an average length of film, if it's over 140 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
that the average rating is certified fresh. So that's
So the-
70 or
The
above.
longer the movie,
The longer the movie,
typically
the,
the
better.
Uh-huh.
And that's what they're claiming. So throwing that out to you all, would you all say that you all would agree with that? Or would you say not necessarily so? It depends.
Well, I'm gonna-
I say
you go
not.
ahead.
Well, I was gonna say not necessarily so. I think on average, probably yeah, because you typically longer movies. You see like Lord of the Rings, Godfather.
Right.
A lot of these movies are meant like they really put their passion into it, so
Mhm.
that shows. I always feel though, even though I think that stereotypically that might be the case, just because those people are so dedicated. A movie. Really, I think the length is just however much you need to tell that story. Because Zombieland is a very short movie,
Right.
but it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Crawl.
and
Crawl
yeah.
was 88 minutes long, and it does exactly what it needed to
Yeah.
do in that 88 minutes.
So to me, it depends on the story and what you need for the story.
Right.
But really, I think it
Which
depends
we've
on.
said countless times.
It depends on the person making it too, because obviously the people making Zombieland were in love with what they were doing and made a good product. They
Well, I
made
think
a good
too.
movie.
It again, it goes back to what you need for the story.
Yeah.
And I think in those moments, they end up becoming certified fresh because of the fact that they literally just sat down and wrote the movie and were like, well, that's as long as we need it. That's as much story as we need to tell.
Mhm.
Nothing
Now I
greater.
do agree with Sean. Kind of made a joke about, but I do agree that longer movies allow for more depth, which a lot of times is a good thing.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when you look at some of in the article, it goes over the movies that I would mention. But so far this year, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was almost 3 hours. Midsummer director's cut was almost 3 hours. It Chapter 2, and these are movies that. Again, when you go see the film, it doesn't feel like a near 3 hour film.
Right.
But they're using every minute that they have available to them to
Right.
add and keep the story going. And there's no filler. There's no you can sometimes when a movie's long, you can just tell that they threw that in there just to make it or just to fill in the time. And I don't feel like there was maybe a couple scenes in Midsummer that I felt that way with some of their camera shots. Like there's a couple of shots where the camera floats through the window, and or turns upside down along a road, and where the road is up on top of the screen, it's all flipped.
It was
and
great.
they go real slow, and it's like, okay, I get it. Yes, the camera angle's awesome, the cinematography's awesome, but it's like 30 or 40 seconds long of this shot, and I'm like, they could have 10 seconds of it or 5 seconds of it even
could have given
been
it
fine.
the same flavor.
But I don't really felt like it was just filler, like just to make this a director's cut and make it longer, or like they cut part of that out to shorten the film with the theatrical version.
And that's the interesting thing about seeing the director's cut before.
Right? Yeah, I have no idea
yet.
what the theatrical version.
But
like.
you all thought, just seeing the director's cut, that everything in it was worthy enough,
necessary.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
there
necessary.
wasn't anything.
Good. Like honestly, like I still want to see the theatrical version, but I feel like I would probably want to just stick with the director's cut because I mean it was
Because I've heard that there's going to be an extended version of Once Upon a Time, and that's going to be over 4 hours long.
Which that's always, I think, with the Tarantino film. Because
The
Hateful Eight was the same way.
I would give anything to see that. Like I want to see that.
I would watch it.
This article mentions a new movie for Netflix called The Irishman that's 3.5 hours
Yeah,
long.
that's Scorsese's new movie.
Yeah, so I want to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, Ben-Hur was a really, really long film, but there again,
the original Ben-Hur was over 3 hours.
Because they had an intermission and everything. But it's just like there's nothing slow or boring in that film. Every second counts.
Right.
And if you need all of those seconds and minutes and even hours to tell your story,
I think that's the key
then do
takeaway. I think it's when we see movies that have been cut down or condensed from a 2-hour version into 90 minutes.
Yes.
Where it's like
You
we're
can
sitting
tell.
there thinking, there's the pacing is off, the character exposition isn't there. There's so many pivotal moments that are like, okay, if you would have just let this sink in, even for those 30, 40 seconds more, you could have got so much more out of that scene. And often that's what we're running up against is, production companies, whether it could be, an extra special effects has to be added, so they got to cut it, or it could be that, oh no, we can't have that person on screen at that time because contractually they're only able, I mean, there could be all these rules, but it also could be, we're trying to hit this sweet spot. And when they go and they share it with, an audience and, they view it and then they end up saying, okay, we'll stick this movie out at 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And everybody in our viewers says, okay.
Well, it's something
This
too
works,
is
but
with
go ahead.
No,
go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say with the change in time, like it seems like movies are getting a little bit longer. I mean, if you remember, like we all grew up in the '90s, every movie was 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
Every
Right.
movie was an hour and a half, and it's
You
like
had those-
now
you had
it's
those
the
rare
2 hour
occasions.
20 minutes.
True, yeah.
2 hours and 20 minutes
Yeah.
seems to be like the golden
The sweet spot.
the sweet
yeah.
spot right now for movies. But there's nothing wrong with these approaching 3 hour or over 3 hour films. But I think sometimes they even cut some of this too to be able to fit more showings in at the theater to make more ticket sales.
Right.
Because
That's
if you cut a
exactly
movie
it.
down to an hour and a half, that's 2 showings that they could get off of a 3 hour plus movie.
Right.
So I think a lot of it has to do with money and not cutting cost, but making
How
more.
much more money
how
can we
much
make?
do they make more
Especially
money.
when you're looking at a production cost, of a film that may be bloated, like something we were talking about recently, Jupiter Ascending.
Yeah.
And even though you recently went back and watched it, when it first came out, I mean, no telling, it was botched from the start of production. So many setbacks, so many delays.
Oh, yeah.
And from the time that it came out, it was a fraction. It was probably just a shell of what the Wachowskis had wanted for the film.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and that's another thing is sometimes when these movies get caught up in development hell because there is, that friction between the studio and the creator, the artist. It's like you have that back and forth that lends itself to
And they
being
go
detrimental.
through so many writers, so many directors, and then it ends up just being a jumbled mess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that can be extremely hurtful to a film.
I was gonna say I was looking at some of these, like some of the ones that are like under the 100-minute mark, which is the most likely to be rotten. And some of them, though, I'm looking at, and I'm like, even if you had added an extra hour onto that movie, it still would have been a bad. Like, they're just bad movies. I mean,
Yes.
Bucky Larson, Born to Be.
Yeah.
There's no version of reality I want to live in where Bucky Larson's a 3-hour movie.
Right.
Because it's never going to be good, no matter how many hours you stick on it. So
That's very true. But no, and again, that all goes back to what we've already kind of discussed and talked about, which is content. Mm-hmm. And it's like when a movie warrants itself to be that long, I think you're more or less right, Sean. I think what it comes down to is sometimes these movies get to push the 2-hour mark, and studios are willing to take a little bit more of a hit of saying, well, we'll take our chances, let's cut it down to an hour and a half, and we'll get more showings, we'll get more money that way. And then it's like, well, now you're expending the creative license that the creator had for the film.
You're making more money off the ticket sales,
right?
But you're losing in the review area, like
which
you're
could
in
end
the
up
word of
hurting
mouth.
your ticket sales,
right?
And it's a gamble. It's a gamble the studios obviously are more willing to take more often than not, simply because they're willing to say, look, yeah, it's a crapshoot, but hey, if we end up making our money back and we push it to 90 minutes, then we got more showings, and so we gain more money. I think too, like especially with like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think what we've started to see is I think we've started to see more these lengths of films kind of become standardized in certain, like, there are the bigger movies like Avengers Endgame, like that's over 3 hours long, but that's not your typical superhero movie.
No.
Yeah, the more popular they got, they were pushing the 2 hour and 30 minute.
They're adding hundreds of characters in there too,
and they're adding all these story arcs, exactly. Yeah. But what it really comes down to is again, it was almost like they started out more, hour and 40 minutes to 2 hour minute mark, and then they, as the series expanded and as it got more in depth, that was when they decided to take the liberty of saying, yeah, we can add more story here that people will appreciate. Yeah. And it's in a series like that where you can say, okay, they took their time to build up to something that would be that long. Whereas a lot of times these movies don't have that chance. It's like you're let out. I mean, honestly, Midsummer, a horror film that's 2 hours and 30 minutes or 2 hours 50 minutes, that's going to be pretty hard to sell.
That's a hard one.
That's
and
a really hard one
being
to sell.
such a kind of under the radar and more independent, it is hard to sell. I mean, and it hasn't done poorly, but it's definitely, you look at it compared
it's like
to
at our theater,
else,
there was only one showing each day.
Yeah.
Right.
That one day it was at 6 p.m., the other day it was at 8 p.m. Like, there's no other showings.
I think 6 people total in the theater when we were in there.
Yeah. Which, and I mean, again, that's also, it has been out, and maybe that was smart on their part for recognizing the popularity, but also saying, yeah, we'll throw another release in there for you to have the director's cut, because it had released already about a month ago, and it had about a month-long run before this director's cut came out.
Yeah.
But I do think that ultimately at the end of the day, yes, movie length gives you more of a chance to have that depth. But I do think that we've seen where in the past where movie length that wasn't necessarily the case. It was a lot of fodder, whether it was a mindless action or sometimes it was, terrible exposition, or like you said, Sean, these long drawn. I mean, I think of great movie, but some parts where I just think it was drawn out for too much was the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a great movie,
but it's
long.
Yeah.
And there's times where it's like, it may be only 2.5 hours, but it feels like a 3-hour film.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like, okay, this is when you need to start cutting the fat and trimming back. But very rarely do I find a movie now that is that length that I sit through and, like you said, it feels like it's that long, or that it doesn't feel like it's worth sitting through.
Yeah.
So very, very intriguing, but awesome there for Rotten Tomatoes to have
that is really cool,
divulged that information. It's pretty cool that they sat down and figured all that out. You can go read it.
I bet Curator wouldn't have done that.
Well, we know Curator can't even get off the ground.
Right. Well, it's kind of funny that you brought that up, because I've been communicating with them through email. Because they responded to my feedback or whatever.
Yeah.
And they did say in the email, they were like, we are, we're sorry that you're having an issue with it, and we definitely want to try to figure this out so that maybe you can re-review our app on your show. That's what they said, because I told them in my email that we we tried their app live on our podcast
Yeah.
in front of our millions of viewers.
That's right, guys. You all don't
and that
see how many
it
millions
failed.
we get
Here's
after it
here's
airs.
one thing that I will say that I think maybe I did wrong is now they tell me it should work, but I'm running the beta version of iOS 13, which isn't out yet, and I was running that when I
That could
tried to
be
download the app. So when I told them what OS version I was using, they said, let's check into that. That might be the problem. But then they confirmed that they have updated their app to work with developers, and it should have worked fine. So they actually had me do video capture of my phone of me downloading the app, creating an account, and seeing the error.
Man,
and
they should pay you
they
for
had
all
me-
this trouble.
yeah.
I mean, they're
They had
lucky
me-
that you were willing to jump
Yeah.
through these hoops.
They had
That's
me
interesting.
email them the two videos, and they still said that they just can't understand why it's not working because they ran it on their own,
Curator,
devices.
we want to
yeah.
use you. We're
I mean,
willing.
it's
We're
working
willing
on
to-
Keith has it
Yeah.
working on his.
It works on
so-
mine, but they don't have a full list. Like they don't have like you could search movies and they don't have them all in there yet. And that bugs me. It's like I mean I know they're starting out, but it's like
Yeah,
pretty big. Like on the show I said Gremlins, it's not even on there.
yeah.
so.
But Ben-Hur was on there, and
Yeah.
Breakfast Club, because I put those as
Those
two
are
of my
on
three
there.
favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
So it's just kind of weird that
It's hit or
Gremlins
miss.
wouldn't be on there.
It's
but
hit or miss.
anyway,
But we're still not going with Curator. We're
not
sticking
so
with Rotten
far.
Tomatoes.
Not
Not so
yet.
far.
We'll
I mean,
see. I
we'd
don't
love,
know.
We'd love for you to fix the app.
The fact that they
And-
interacted with you.
Oh,
for
they
that
had
long
like
to
all
fix,
week
yeah.
long. They've been
That's pretty
emailing
good,
back
though.
and forth.
I will give
Hey,
them that.
yeah.
That's
okay,
good.
so yeah, great customer service.
Yeah.
but we need a product
We
that
need a
works.
product that
Yeah,
works.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like
Well, hey,
having lip
hey.
sync issues.
It's better than Movie Pass. Movie Pass had a product that didn't work and terrible customer service. So I
Both,
mean,
yeah. And we still used it.
Hey,
I don't know.
It
And
was
then
good.
they sold our data to Russians. Okay,
It was good while it lasted. It was good while it lasted.
I'm glad we got out when we did, because
Yeah.
there's people like getting their
Oh, they're
still
getting-
getting a bill, and they're not
Yes.
even getting to use
Yeah,
their
they're getting
stuff.
and
screwed,
they've
so-
they've been suckered in for all of the freaking
Yes.
oh gosh,
There's
the-
lawsuits
the
and stuff now, yeah.
reorganization.
Yeah,
it's
and you still
terrible.
can only you could still only watch certain movies. Like
Yeah.
you still only allow
Yeah.
like, oh well, today you could see this movie or this movie. And
Oh,
I'm like, no,
gosh.
let me choose
Yep.
what. No,
It's a yeah.
I
It's
don't
never
I don't
want to
go on that rant
Movie
again.
Pass.
Let's
is
get
a-
on another one. Let's do our.
I think so. Are
weekly
we,
yeah,
segments.
weekly
are
segment.
you
Let's
are you
go
all ready
it.
for this week's multimedia segment?
I think we are.
I think you all are going to steal the show on this because
We always steal
Once
the
again,
show.
you
yeah,
haven't
I
seen
haven't
it.
seen it, but I'm not a fan of this series. So here's our
What? 'Cause you're a
multimedia.
pagan.
I haven't
Okay.
seen it.
All right.
He's never seen the original.
Multimedia.
Multimedia.
That's
Yeah, he could hear everything you were saying. I was like, wait a minute, I can still hear Keith talking.
That's right.
Oh,
I don't.
boy.
I don't cut the mics there.
Oh, you don't?
You used
no,
to.
You used
no.
to.
I always like I always like us chiming in like, haven't you heard?
Oh, wait, I've never done that.
Vices?" I know,
weird.
but I always keep the mics up. It's
Yeah,
not
he's
long
never seen
enough.
the original movie, so he's never
I haven't
seen anything.
It's not.
So
see,
you
that's the
don't
thing. I'm
know.
not a fan.
Yeah.
It's
You don't
not
know
that I'm
if
not
you're
a
a
fan. I
fan.
just don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
don't
don't
I'm
know yet.
intrigued because of like Jim Henson, and I love the Labyrinth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Huge fan
Very
of
This
that.
came.
from the,
This came
from
very
before.
much.
This came
Yeah.
before the Labyrinth.
it's very much the same
Yeah.
though.
And
I
I've
mean, it's-
heard nothing.
Same
but
vein.
it's weird because everybody that I've heard who loves The Dark Crystal
Mhm.
is like, I mean, it's a cult classic,
is,
but it
yeah.
is truly like if you're a fan, you are a fan.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
It's,
And
it's
you love it.
amazing.
Yeah.
and
It
and
is.
it's weird, but it's usually I feel like it's one of those kind of you either are or you aren't.
Yeah,
And most people are like, nah, I'm not gonna give it a chance. And the ones who do are like they fall in love with it.
yeah.
And so you all I know are huge fans of the film and we're super excited about the series coming out on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so why don't we talk about it? Because I know you all are eager
Let me-
and jumping at the bit.
I'll share something just real quick about the film, because the film, ultimately, seeing the film is what is going to make you
Oh yeah.
fully enjoy this series. But I saw this when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But I watched it 1,000 freaking
Mhm.
times, because I remember like my dad getting we got a VCR for the first time. And he, we would buy some tapes, but it was almost like, I don't remember where he got it from or who he got it from, but he came home from work one day with a bag of tapes, and they were recorded, like movies were recorded on them. So it wasn't like
wait,
I had.
is this like bootleg? You
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about back in the day bootleg?
Yeah, he recorded it off
everybody
of TV
did.
or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
it was, but
We all did that with
But that was
VHS,
how I
yeah.
saw Dark Crystal, because he had like 3 or 4 movies on an extended tape.
Yes.
You know, you remember
yes.
that used to be extended tape.
That's how I saw, I would say, 80% of any movie in the 90s. My grandparents used to record everything.
Yes.
So, because, Gremlins and Dark Crystal, I saw
Yeah.
recorded from my
See,
grandparents.
and real quick, just short side story. I'm just saying, because Tremors was another movie that they
saw that
recorded.
recorded, yep.
Yeah.
And it's like bad when you start to remember the recorded version that's edited for TV
Yeah.
more than the movie itself.
Yeah.
And so I remember
Move your butt.
Please move your butt. And it's the
But no,
terrible,
I
terrible.
think
ad-libs.
watching the Dark Crystal on this tape, I think it had the commercials and stuff on it.
Yes, yeah.
So, but that's how I saw the film for the first time, and I mean, my dad was tickled that he brought something home that we could all watch, and I remember sitting in the basement on the big screen TV that we had that had a freaking piece of furniture built all the way around it,
Yeah.
like one of them big wooden,
Yes,
square
the-
letterbox TVs, but
yep.
it was like 60-something inches, but
console
it was
television.
huge, man. Like
Yeah.
it was 6 feet tall. It was crazy, but you know, I couldn't even reach the VCR up on top of the TV to put the tape in, but I sat in the basement and watched that movie over and over and over again, and it terrified me every time, but I loved it that much. And I don't know why that as a child you would watch something that scares you like that.
I did with both, like Gremlins and
Gremlins, too. Yeah, Gremlins
and
as well.
The Dark
Yeah.
Crystal, they
scared
both
me to death.
They both scared the crap out of me, and I watched them over
that
and over.
movie has always been with me since the time I was a little kid. So when Netflix announced that they were going to be producing this series and that it was going to be real puppets and not all CGI, that was like I felt the same way I felt when I found out they were making a Transformers movie.
Yeah.
But the Transformers movie kind of let me down,
This did
and
not.
this did not. This was the real deal.
Okay.
So if you are a fan of the film, or if you've ever seen the film, the series is not going
An
to
absolute
disappoint you.
must-see.
It is, absolutely.
Because my experience with the Dark Crystal is almost pretty much the exact same, except for in my parents' basement, because my parents don't have one. It was at my grandparents' house, but I mean, same thing. I mean, I fell in love with that movie as a child watching it, and it scared every time, like when they drained the essence of the podlings.
Yes.
That I was terrified. I could not, but I mean, I still loved the movie. And as a grown adult watching this series, and I mean, it hits everything perfectly. It did not disappoint me or let me down in any way.
Yep.
As a grown adult watching this series, there are things in it that terrified me. And I'm an adult. I was watching this thing and it's like, oh my
He
gosh.
said, "I'm an adult
I
now."
was saying- I'm just saying. I watched this thing. These are puppets still on
Right.
screen. And I'm like, this
Right.
is scary as all crap.
And I mean, in the original, you can see the strings and you can
Yeah.
see the rods moving their
Yeah.
hands and stuff. And in this, like, obviously they have the technology to remove all of that
Yeah.
stuff, but
Right.
it's still Jim Henson's puppets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're so real and so
Well, would you
I
say
mean,
that,
God.
that part and parcel? Because this is how it is, I think, with a lot of times, anytime you touch on nostalgia, it's like, for one, absolutely, you have to get the story right. You know, it just, like you said, Transformers disappointed because it's a nostalgia trip,
Yep.
but it fell short in terms
story.
of story
Oh, yeah.
and just hitting that part, you know, that soul
Yeah.
that it should
It
have.
had no soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so would you say that when you saw the trailer for this, or when you saw that this was coming out and you saw the original puppets were being used?
Well, they're not. They're
No,
remakes.
when I say
yeah.
original puppets,
Yeah.
I just mean like in general going back to puppetry.
Yeah. Oh,
when you
as
saw
soon as they
that,
announced they were going to use puppets, I was like, yes. I mean, I knew.
Yeah.
I was like, at least
There-
it seemed like their heart was in the right
Yes.
place. These were people who were fans of the original.
That's a
that
big
wanted
gamble
to, do
to
a
take.
Yeah.
though.
it
Yes.
I mean, it really is. In a day, an age of CGI, it's a big
do a
gamble
whole
use. Yeah, to
series?
do the series with real puppets. That's like a huge gamble. I felt, and when I figured out that that's what it was going to be, that it wasn't going to be CGI, I was kind of like, okay, there's passion behind this.
Right.
It's not just a cash grab or try to bring back, you know, because before they ever even announced that there was going to be a new series, they re-released Dark Crystal in 4K
Oh yeah.
on Blu-ray, and we both snatched that
Gorgeous.
up. Like
Yeah.
we pre-ordered it and stuff.
Gorgeous.
But yeah, it was just like, I don't know. It felt like it was all coming together.
how'd you enjoy that versus the VHS version?
Oh, it's night and day.
yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I mean, other than just even the nostalgia of coming back to that world.
Mhm.
And I mean, I heard a little bit briefly last week, you all salivating over this new series.
Oh, it was it's
but
so good.
I know you talked a little bit, Keith, about how.
I talked to you when we recorded the review last
Yes.
week. I told you the
just
world
the world
building.
building.
I told him, and I still stand by this, having seen the whole series. Not in the same vein, obviously, because they're different genres and there's a different level of maturity and depth. But the world building I felt in this is just as good as the world building in Lord of the Rings, and Game of Thrones.
Wow.
It's like, yeah,
Wow.
it's they took what was in the movie, which was very simplistic because it was just the simple plot of what they were showing in that 80-minute movie, but they added depth to
80
it.
minutes,
Yeah.
certified fresh.
They added
from Red Moon Podcast.
depth to it, and they expanded on it without ruining or even conflicting. Like there's some even the Star Wars prequels conflict with certain things in the originals that was like, okay, that doesn't line up. This doesn't have that. It's like everything builds into the original, and there's nothing in it that's like, well, that couldn't happen because this happened. It's like they were aware of everything to make sure that the history they were building led into
Didn't
what would
contradict
happen.
the
Right.
story
Yeah,
that
it
was
doesn't
already
contradict.
made.
And, it was,
and there's
it was good.
still more to come because
Yeah.
they've already discussed the second season.
Oh, they've
So-
left it off.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pretty clear that they were like, oh yeah, we're not done yet.
Which is
Yeah.
crazy because,
Yeah.
again, for it to be as ambitious as it was and such a risk in this type of storytelling, I mean, for them to take the gamble of not knowing whether or not, I mean, they had to have known just with in the same way that
I think for the amount of time that it would take to make this.
Yeah.
I just
They had to have a hunch that
yeah.
there was this kind of fan base
that
for
they
this.
were doing well, and they had to have the confidence to know that we're doing this well enough that we think. And I mean, the way it ends, like there could never be another series, and it would still like be okay going into the next one, but it leaves you wanting more because
Right.
they do leave
because
off
there is a
enough
gap.
to-
Well, there's a time
Yeah.
gap between the series and
The
the film, and that time gap can either be filled in with more series, or it could just be left the way it is, and it would still.
But
it
they
would still fit.
leave enough threads open with the characters in the series that it's like, okay, yeah, obviously there's more story to tell with these characters, and they plan on telling it. So I mean, it is. I don't know. It was really good. Just the level of detail with the puppets. I mean, they look. You could put the puppets in this series right next to the puppets from the original.
I wouldn't doubt that they used
and-
the same molds.
No, they
from
probably
them.
did. They probably did.
The
yeah.
voice acting is spot on too because they have new voice actors, but yet they sound just like
the original.
And
the 80s. Yeah,
And the crazy thing is, like, it's not even like the people it's like they chose people specifically for their roles because not all of them are professional voice actors. Like Mark Hamill is. He does a voice in this, and he's terrific. I mean, but he's also a professional voice actor. But I mean, they have like Awkwafina does a role, and she's amazing. Taron Egerton, or however you pronounce his name, is
Yeah.
one of the main characters. They're all big name actors. I just
Simon
can't.
Pegg
Simon
is one.
Pegg. Simon Pegg does one of the main characters from the original film, and sounds exactly like
Yeah.
him. It is
It's
amazing.
scary.
It
See,
is
okay,
impressive.
but that's the thing. So even getting these big name
Yeah.
stars, it's like they knew what they were stumbling upon.
oh yeah,
They had to have known. You know, I mean, I think it was
Well,
a
I
big
can
gamble and a
imagine
risk.
Simon Pegg
but-
being someone who's a fan of the film.
Yes,
I can imagine
Yes.
him being a geek and being one that's part of that cult
Yes,
following.
and
So
wanted
you
to-
think
So,
too?
yeah.
A lot of this is just fan love from
I
It
guarantee-
has to
people
be.
who
I
are.
guarantee
It has to be.
I'm sure Simon Pegg and Mark Hamill were fans. I mean, I'm sure they were like, absolutely, we want to do it. And probably many of them were. I mean,
Yeah,
Andy
some-
Samberg and Bill Hader do voices.
They're
and,
too.
I mean,
yeah, but Sandberg, I would almost say that he's probably maybe have seen the film, but he's really almost too young because he's in his
Well, I
early
mean,
20s, isn't he?
I
Or
think he's
how old
probably
is he?
like mine and Brandon's
Is he?
age.
Okay.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I didn't know if he was that old or not
Yeah.
because I'm thinking if you're, if you weren't around, if you hadn't been born by 1990, then you have no idea what movie this is. Like you just don't know.
Probably,
True.
yeah. and I
unless
agree.
unless you.
No, Brandon was born in 90. He's still
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
no,
I'm just
I've
saying,
known
though.
about
He
it,
knows
but
what
it's
it
like,
is.
But
I've-
yeah, because other people have.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and it was weird because it was through the labyrinth, which
Oh,
I
wow.
think maybe proved
Andy
more
Samberg
popular.
is a lot older than we think he is.
He's
How
like
old
in
is
his
he?
40s.
He's
I bet.
41.
I
Yeah.
thought-
No.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he
Oh,
was
well, then
born-
there you go.
He
What'd
was
you
born-
all say?
What?
I
In
thought
his
he was
What'd
our
you all
age,
say?
yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah. I thought he was in his 30s. Yeah,
I
he was
thought he
born
was
in
serious?
1978. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
So
I
yeah, he
had
was
no
all
idea.
about that.
Wow. Yeah,
he probably
was.
saw that in
He
theaters
saw it
when
in
he was.
theaters.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean,
that's why he's
awesome.
such a fan. But no, I do.
Dang
I
on.
think it was like the labyrinth was so big for me, because I just remember.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, what's weird
Anya
is
Taylor-Joy. That was the other
Oh,
big
Anya
name.
Taylor. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter's a big name.
Of course.
Natalie Emmanuel, who was in Game of Thrones, does a voice. So I mean, there's a lot of
But it was. I think maybe The Labyrinth got a lot of attention because of David Bowie's attachment to it, him writing the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And I think him pursuing. But it's funny because Jim Henson's name attached to it alone was already what popularized it too. But then The Dark Crystal, that's what seems so kind of obscure, was that it was this puppet movie, but had a dark, very,
Oh, it's not for kids.
I was going to say, it's
I
not
don't
a
feel like
kid's
it was
movie.
ever meant for kids.
And so it kind of makes me think of like Pan's Labyrinth, where all these parents went and took
Well,
their
it's not
kids.
quite that adult.
No,
No,
but I would say it was like on the level of this, in the sense that parents were confused, thinking that this is like a kids movie,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. And I would argue the same for The Dark Crystal. That I wouldn't say it's not a kids movie. I would just say that it has a mature tone that you have to set your kids up for, and one that you don't.
I wouldn't
get.
let my kid watch it.
Kids,
Really?
I think
No.
kids are fine to watch it. They
Not
just
right now.
No, your kids I think are too. I would say
Yeah.
I think once they reach a certain age, like I don't know, like
But
I wouldn't
I
let
think-
younger kids watch it.
Do you
at
think
all,
too that part of it is what has gotten? I think it crossed. I mean, almost like Pixar uses that bridge of we can use our humor, but our heartwarming nature to appeal to kids with the fluffy colors and the characters, but also have a real sincere story to connect to adults. And it's like you get the best of both worlds. Whereas this is like, you take a medium that almost seems like it's just specifically made for kids, and we're going to try to bring it out of that depth and bring it more into a mature level of understanding. And I think that's the nature in which The Dark Crystal
Jim
kind of
Henson was
rests.
never one for. I mean, he made Sesame Street specifically for kids to teach kids. But I mean, even the original Muppets, like while it wasn't like it was still like kids could watch it. It
Had
was
the tongue-in-cheek.
it was family. It had innuendo and
Yeah.
it had adult humor as well. Jim Henson was never one to shy away from. He felt like. No, you don't put too much of adult stuff for kids, but kids can handle certain things
Well, they
without
have
you.
to. You have
don't
to-
have
you
to
have
du-
to
you
raise
don't
them
have
at
to
some point.
You
They
don't
have to
have to
grow
dumb
up,
things down and make them,
Right.
this slapstick kiddie thing for
Yeah.
kids to still be able to watch it. Yeah.
And so that if there's one thing I can say that I appreciate, it's that having not even seen the film, it's one reason why I look forward to watching it. And then hopefully, if I become a fan enough, continuing on with the series.
The series is amazing. It really is.
Yep.
I mean all of
not
it.
just the fact that it's like the story and the acting and the art design and all that, but I mean, it's beautifully filmed.
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, it's one of those things that on Netflix it shows in the HDR and the 4K and all that kind of stuff. It really shines.
Yeah.
And if you watch the film that way and then go into the series, they're gonna fit pretty good.
It's
and instead of watching a VHS
Yeah.
and then go into 4K, like it's
It's
just
almost like
beautiful.
it's finally a time for their art to truly show.
There was one
purest form.
aspect of the show that had me nervous before it came out, and then after watching it, like it blows my mind, and that's the director, Louis Leterrier, who directed Incredible Hulk for the MCU. He is not. Most of his movies are just mediocre. Like he's not a bad director, but they tend to just be like, okay, yeah, that was fine. And so to see he's a fan because you see like what he put into this movie, and it's like, do that with everything you make. Like I was really impressed because he directed every episode, and I'm like, I'm extremely impressed with the fact that like this was definitely had to be a passion project for him.
Absolutely.
Because I mean it just
for him to direct every episode
Yeah,
of a
and
series. That's not like
Not
that's,
typical.
That's
No,
not
it's not.
typical
It's
for
not.
any show.
and it's good. It's really good. So
Yeah.
I'm like he was like Sean was saying, the cinematography, the art direction. I mean, they even got like Brian Froud, who did the set and creature designs for the original. They hired him to do it for like he's back doing it for the series, and it's like it's perfect because it makes everything mesh together so much.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I think we're time to.
Approaching the
I
end.
think we're
Yeah.
approaching the end, even with all of our.
We could
our-
put our nerd boners away.
Well, no,
Yeah.
well, and all our technical difficulties.
He
It's
did-
been one
okay.
hell of an episode.
He did the
know?
Transporter, Clash of the Titans remake, and Now You See Me. Those are his movies.
Ooh,
Now
now
You
you
See
see
Me,
me
that was terrible.
awful.
It's
Yeah.
like he's not
That
got
wasn't
he's not got a great resume, but he hit
Well,
it out of the park.
he
with
did. He
this.
does
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
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 I mean, this alone right there. And that's all it takes. I mean, but again, you sink that kind of passion into it. That's what it takes
Yeah.
to knock it out of the park.
Well,
and how many of those movies do we know that the studio didn't just say, look, no, it's
And
not a 2-hour film. It's an hour and a half.
That's true.
Cut it.
I think. I mean, when you look at some of those, like the Transporter series, those are what they're meant to be. They're the mindless action movies, and that's fine.
Yep.
The Incredible Hulk, I like. I thought it, but I mean, it's not the greatest, but it's still a good. So he has some decent ones, but I do think Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance is definitely the best work he's put out.
Yeah.
So if you are a fan of the Dark Crystal, absolutely check out the new series.
Age of Resistance, Dark
Age of
Crystal, Age of Resistance.
Age of Resistance. Alrighty, guys. I think that's it for us here on this Red Moon Podcast episode. As always, I'm on the wide shot right now.
Oh, wide.
Ooh.
Hello.
Hey.
Deep and
Oh.
wide, deep and wide.
But you
Long
can.
and deep. Right?
No.
That's what we're talking about, the length of the movie.
Yeah,
I was talking about the
that's-
song.
yeah,
I was
that's
singing the
true.
song,
But I'm
though.
changing it to long
There's
and
a
deep.
river flowing deep and wide.
Deep and wide.
Yeah, you know.
I know it.
Wow.
Yeah, you do. I remember
Heck
singing
yeah.
that in Vacation Bible School.
Absolutely. There's this little light of mine.
Okay, I
I'm
know
gonna
that
let
one.
it shine.
Hide it under
look,
the
look,
bush.
look.
Go, no,
They-
this little light of mine.
They sang that at church the other day, and I cannot hear that song without thinking of that goofy Rocket Man movie. You know when he's
Yes.
and that's like, and it ruins it because it's like I know it's. I mean, it's not a bad song, but even if I'm in church and I hear it, I'm sitting there like. I keep thinking of him in
Yes.
space. He's got the
whole
whole
world
And
in his
that's what they
hands.
sang that. Yeah, not
Yep.
this little item. They sang they got the whole
Oh,
yeah.
well, but I think
every
of the
time
same
hear
thing.
that,
I think of
that
the
movie.
same thing.
I'm like, I'm not thinking
With the hand gestures. You can't
terrible.
help it. But like it says in the bottom of our screen, email us.
Email.
rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
All right. Sorry about the technical issues. Apparently, it's still happening.
It's
'cause we're still getting.
I mean, look,
Talk.
the equipment is sick like me, so we're going to try to figure
Brandon
it out.
messed
Give
something
the
up.
equipment a recall.
I don't know. Yeah.
He gave it a virus.
I need to give it a recall.
virus.
Thanks for all of our listeners for sticking with us.
Gave it a Mr. Smith.
I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
until next time,
We'll see you at the movies.
We got it right. Oh! It's not synced.
The one time.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.